Hey, guys. Welcome to the Weapon Works podcast. I'm Zach. I'm your host. I appreciate you guys coming in here with me. Today, I'm joined by a man that's helped me out quite a bit, actually. A Silicon Valley veteran. He's worked for a lot of startups. He was one of the engineers at Facebook, and now he's doing firearms or consulting in the firearms and social media space. Mr. Chuck Rossi, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Zach. Thanks for having me on here.
No, sir. I appreciate you doing it with me. I've had a lot of guys interested in what you have to say because every time I tell somebody, I'm like, no, I'm running ads on Instagram. How in the hell are you doing that? I'm like, I got a guy. So everybody wants
Yeah.
to know who my guy is.
Well, I'm your guy, and I would like to help as many people as possible in that space, trying to get their ads through Instagram, Facebook. So just kind of some background. I've worked in Silicon Valley as an engineer for 30 years or so. And I made a name for myself as kind of a specialist in this kind of release engineering area, this DevOps, continuous deployment, continuous delivery, kind of back end plumbing, if you will, of the software world. And I did that very well for 30 years. I had an amazing team at Facebook. I was a director there when I left. I had like 90 people on the team. And, my team was responsible for shipping Facebook. So Facebook.com, that was me, my team. The iOS and Android apps, that was us. This is, WhatsApp, Messenger, Facebook, Instagram, Oculus. We had our, influence either directly or indirectly over all that stuff to ship to 2 point something billion people. So that was my specialty. And that's where I kind of made a name. And if you're interested in that stuff, there's all sorts of videos and papers we published about how we do that. It's pretty incredible. But, good.
So out of everybody that I've spoke to, I'm you guys, the distribution to 2 billion people. I mean, that is by far the largest reach of anyone that I've ever spoke to or interviewed. That's kind of crazy to think about.
It is, and it was addictive. That's why I stayed at Facebook for almost 11 years, is because there's precious few places in the world where you can go have direct influence on that many people. It's every other job offer I looked at was like, oh, you and your 10 million users, that's cute, right? I want to work for your company with your lousy 10 million users. It's also a little bit terrifying because, again, we were in charge of the last mile from the developer product development to the phone. So we ship our mobile apps every week. So every week you're going to get a new Facebook, new Messenger, new WhatsApp, new Instagram. That's a weekly cadence for mobile release. That's what everybody should be doing in the mobile space. That's what they want to be doing. It's also terrifying because I am kind of personally delivering bits to billions of phones every week. Yeah. If we screw that up, I mean, there was a bug on the Apple side where we potentially could have bricked because of an Apple iOS bug, and we tickled that bug. We could have bricked those phones. We could have basically put a one-way push where you would have started an app and it would lock your phone to the point where you've bricked it.
Yeah, there would be a lot of people that did not like you if that happened.
Right.
I imagine crazy lawsuits and shit like that. I mean, that is a lot of liability there.
So that was the risk, and that's the risk management mindset that we had to take into consideration. That's how we develop processes and tools to manage that risk, and that's where we were very successful.
Now over there on the engineering side of things, you were one of the big wigs, right? You were one of the head guys.
Yeah, I was a director. There's dozens and dozens of directors on the engineering side and on the non-engineering side, but yeah, it's a decent level.
So let me ask you this. I mean, did they know you were a gun guy when they hired you?
Yeah, they did, because they hired me back in, what was it, 2008, 2007, 2008. And I think the first month I was there, I had a case of 9mm delivered to the office because that's what I did, right? It's like, I shoot a lot. I need ammo and I don't want to have it delivered at home. I did the same thing at Google where I worked before. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they weren't quite on top of it. And I used to get ammo shipments, and I got, thousands of bullets from Montana Gold would come in, and, they didn't check. But the first month at Facebook, I get a case of 9, and I'm waiting for it. And I come in one morning, and on my monitor is a Post-it note from the head of security. It says, "See me." So I said, "Oh, cool. My ammo came in." So they weren't too happy that I got a case of ammo shipped to the office.
So oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, so they knew. And that was definitely not a problem. It's just, well, don't have your shit sent to the office, which, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I've always been known as kind of a gun nut there. And that came to fruition. Like, I can't, I ran into people at work, even at Facebook, where there, at that time, there wasn't any overt kind of reason you would think anyone would care.
Mm-hmm.
But so many gun people at work are just like, oh man, I don't want anybody to know that, I shoot guns or I'm into this or that. And it's like this in the closet secret. And I have not found that to be healthy. And it doesn't help any of us. I mean, you have to live that life out loud. You have to live your authentic self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, I mean, good things happened, at least in my case. So they knew I was kind of the gun person. And eventually, we do these offsites, right? We get, as a manager, and this is kind of a good thing for bosses to know, you always budget every quarter, every year, some money for offsites, for team building, for some, bullshit thing where you go and go pretend you like each other, right, on the team. So we get money every quarter for offsites. And someone came to me, manager came to me, hey, Chuck, I want to take my team to the shooting range for our offsite. Can you tell us where to go? And thinking about it, I'm like, well, around here, there's no place that could like ingest a company team of 10, 20 people and give them an experience. It would be really expensive. You'd have to take a full class. It'd be like the logistics and the prep and the space and all the guns, and it'd be like ridiculous. And then without thinking, I said, well, I'll do it because I'm an NRI certified instructor. I'm an NROI range officer. I teach range safety at my local club, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, I'm bringing 10, 20 people out to the range and just pulled out, I look at your wall back there. I'm like, okay, I'll need one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these, and pull out a bunch of stuff and take a bunch of people to the range, 10 or 12 at a time. And boy, that caught on. And I wound up doing that between 2014 and I did the last one just before I left. I did 50 or 60 teams went through that. Probably about 1,100 people went through the Facebook kind of offsite for gun shooting. And these are people who'd never even seen a gun before, most of them, like 90% had not even seen a gun in real life. And it was really well received. And all that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have.
All right. So we were talking about you going out on the shooting range with your Facebook guys, and
so the fact that I did kind of live out loud and was willing to talk about my gun experiences and my hobby and my passion. In fact, I had like empty shell casings on top of my monitor, things like that was a benefit. And it basically, I got to expose, like I say, well over 1,000 people to a very positive experience with firearms.
yeah, show them that it's not evil.
Exactly.
Like everybody in California thinks.
Yeah, they surely do.
Well, you know what's funny is if I had to venture to guess, I would say probably a good 15 to 20% of my business is from California. There is a big thriving gun community there, but there's just a big thriving anti-gun community there too. So
that's true. And I would tell people in your position, a bunch of small businesses right off California, like, oh, we're not even going to deal with it because there's some hoops to jump through for your FFL to get stuff in. And it's not, it's bullshit, but you got to do it. And it's doable. Do it. Because like, look at the population of California. It's huge. It's bigger than a lot of countries.
mm-hmm.
And you're just writing that off like you're not going to address that market. Yeah, build a featureless friggin' rifle, right? Yeah. Put that stupid grip fin on it and fix the stock, put on a comp, and you can sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I am frustrated by a lot of places that won't even talk to me for gear and stuff that I like because it's California. Like, we don't ship to California. I'm like, well, with a little bit of effort, you have how many in California now? Tens of millions of people who are potential customers. So it seems kind of dumb on your part not to consider that.
Yeah, I'm not a guy that'll walk by a quarter sitting on the ground and not pick it up. If there's a way I can get my stuff to the California guys, I definitely will.
Right.
And it shocks me that a lot of companies aren't willing to screw with that. Because it's really not that big a deal.
I mean, for some of the hoops, it's not a big deal. The real killer for us, and that's real killing me among many crazy laws here, is the handgun rouster. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a fixed list of which handguns you can buy, and it's dwindling rapidly, which actually is a good thing because it's basically a handgun ban at this point.
Yeah.
When there's a lawsuit against it, FPC is, I think the Firearm Policy Coalition and others have a pretty good lawsuit going for it. It's going to take time, but that thing's got to be thrown out. There's no way. It's a de facto ban.
Yeah.
I haven't, we're still on Gen 3 Glocks. Glock is still has a huge, spin up of Gen 3 manufacturing, basically because it's the only Glocks that can be sold in California. Right?
That's kind of crazy, man. I've never understood it, but then again, I see shit popping up where they're wanting to do a drinking water tax and shit like that. It's I don't know. I would love to be able to understand it, but I don't think I'll ever be able to.
No.
And you're living that, right?
Yeah, I am.
So your background a little bit, can we kind of start like from the beginning of your career? Like, how did you get into, engineering and, I mean, because, you're speaking German to me when you're talking about a lot of this stuff. How did that come about? Like, where did that passion come from?
I was very fortunate in that it kind of was a hobby that turned into something that you can make a profession from. So this is back in the early 80s when kind of computer science and personal computers were just kind of coming on the scene with the IBM PC and the XT and the TRS-80 and the Apple II and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So think back. Well, I don't know if you can't think back. I don't know if you were born, but 1980s.
I was born in 80. I was an 80s baby.
Okay. Well, just around that time, those systems came online, and my dad was a school teacher, middle school teacher, and his district was a solid district, and they got some TRS-80s, these Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 1s, and it's an old clunky computer back in the day, and he brought that home, and on the weekends when it wasn't needed in school, and I would go hack away on that thing and start learning, basic programming and really got, I'm a nerd, probably a little autistic at heart. So yeah, the kind of nerdy stuff there was right up my alley, right? So just going into school, looking for a college, a lot of colleges didn't have computer science, but I knew I wanted something with computers. So I just looked for colleges that had some sort of computer-centric, programming-centric thing, because that's what I liked. And this kind of goes back to what you say is find that thing that you like, that you would do if you didn't have to do it,
mm-hmm.
and make that your thing. And by pure dumb luck, this was a perfect time because computer science was really getting more mainstream. I went to school entered college in 1984. It was perfect. I found a really good computer science program with I went to Rochester Institute of Technology up in Rochester, New York. And RIT was a very hands-on, practical, build skills to get a job kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
You had some research, but it wasn't a research-centric place. And that's what got me going. And that degree matched my passions.
Nice. It's actually very rare that someone's actual degree is something that they enjoy doing. And that's
Yeah.
a cool thing. So you get out of school. Where did you go to work? Right.
So the big thing RIT did is I had for my curriculum, I had to have 2 internships before I could graduate, my junior and senior year. So I did 1 internship for Philips making picture tubes up in Seneca Falls, New York. I worked on the software systems there for making picture tubes, which is really interesting. Picture tubes, you don't know what those are anymore, but CRTs needed these tubes. And it's a long story, but that's what they did. And some software there. Then I got an internship with IBM in Connecticut.
Okay.
And that, the point of and again, this is good for your business, any of your businesses, get those interns. Like if you find people who are in that college age or even high school age who have a interest in what you do, get them in as cheap labor, right? We got paid, but I mean, I've even heard of internships where you don't get paid. But get that apprentice, get that going, get that interest. That's your main source of finding new employees. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you after 30 years of in the industry, my number one concern was hiring good people. And when I had an intern and I could see them firsthand what they were doing, I could, it's basically an extended job interview. And I had a ready pool of interns who I could get as soon as I graduated. I'd try to scap them up. And that worked. Those are my best employees when I was hiring for the various companies. So that's what worked for me. I was an intern at IBM. When I graduated, it was late 1989, so not a great time in the economy, a little bit of a recession going on, but I was able to find a job with IBM in Palo Alto, California, because I had those connections with IBM and Danbury, and I was a known quantity, got very good marks. So I moved from New York State to California, went from one non-free state to another, which
Yeah.
California was actually more free in those days. But yeah, that's what got me to California and the tech scene. And then from there, I was in Silicon Valley, and the jobs are just plentiful for engineers. You can't walk 10 feet without getting hit in the head with an offer.
Nice.
And that just set me up. It's funny, there's not a place like that for guns. Like in Italy, there's and I think it's Valdosta, there's like one section where Umberti and Tanfoglio and Benelli and Beretta and Tanfoglio and all those guys are kind of located in the same area. I guess in the US, it used to be Connecticut with Colt.
And everybody's migrating down south now. Like we've got a big Ruger plant here in North Carolina. We've got Marlin, Remington, basically that whole Freedom Arms group. They're all headquartered right down the road from us.
That's true. Georgia's got Sklock.
Daniel Defense. And,
yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of them between North Carolina and Florida.
So you could say that's kind of the center for gun competence, firearms competence. So yeah, Silicon Valley and then the equivalent for guns.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Then you got the big hotbeds like Texas and then Arizona. They're all over the place, man. My buddies that run these gun businesses, they are all over the place.
Right. But it sounds like a lot of the anchor companies are more along that eastern seaboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The bigger names, Glock, all those other guys. So, I mean, how big of a unicorn were you at Facebook? I mean, like, is there other guys like you at Facebook?
There are. The problem is there weren't that many that were senior.
Mm-hmm.
So I was probably the most senior person who was willing to put my neck out and kind of make this my personal crusade. And it wasn't a personal crusade. It was a corporate crusade, really, to make the company do better. Because I bleed Facebook blue. When I'm in a company, I'm pretty loyal to that company. I mean, when I was even at IBM, I have a very high opinion of IBM to this day. But every company I've been at, like, I take it very personally. So at Facebook, I was there early enough. There were maybe 300 employees when I started. And I took it personally enough, like, okay, I believe in this company. I believe kind of this connecting people and letting people express themselves. And I can see all the good that happens at Facebook because I experience it personally with the groups I'm in, the people I'm connected with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the bullshit that gets written about Facebook just completely blows past the fact that we have connections and relationships with people and things that we never would have had if it wasn't for this worldwide global network, which is amazing, right? So it's like all this slagging against it's really discouraging. And I don't need to tell anybody who listens to this that the media is full of crap. I mean, you've read any article about firearms or shooting or anything in any mainstream press, and as a firearm person, like, that was 90% garbage. It was biased, it was exaggerating, and it was wrong. It's the same thing when they write about Facebook or other things. It's like we're the assault weapon of social media if you read the press.
Hyperbole is a big thing, man, with everything that we do nowadays, whether it's talking about people on the left, talking about people on the right, talking about Facebook, talking about guns. Everything is blown way out of proportion. And, nobody's kind of right in the realm of middle of the ground common sense anymore.
Exactly, because that doesn't sell clicks. All right. It's got to be the most extreme tribal, you got to pick your tribe and then just, make up your story to go against the other side. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook kind of on the outside is caught into that. I think the press, even by the New York Times, that gets generated about Facebook was just garbage. Absolutely wrong. So, being inside, it bugged me that we weren't doing a good job with the firearm stuff. So as one of the more senior people, I said, I'm going to take this on.
Yeah.
And again, you want to work for a company where my boss didn't say, like, hey, that's not your lane. You can't do that. You're a release guy. You're in engineering. Well, no, my boss is like, no, you're a good asset. You're a good manager. You're a good director. You see a problem. I want you to go fix that problem. I don't care where it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I got on both sides. The engineering side and the kind of the other side I was entering into. So I wish there were more people at Facebook. I know there are senior people who are very, ambivalent to pro gun, but it's not going to be the thing. They're not going to fall on that sword. They got other problems. They got other responsibilities. There's plenty of pro-gun people within Facebook. There's an internal group and an external group of gun people that we get together and talk, about gun stuff. Probably quite a few hundred in each group. So yeah, it's not. It's just that the policies and the people making decisions have no idea what they're doing, and it's mostly mostly out of ignorance, but there's a fair amount of bias and kind of politics involved at the highest levels. That was tricky to navigate.
That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. But I mean, you've just recently left Facebook. You said that you were going to be semi-retired, and on your way out, you being the enterprising guy that you are, you were like, well, maybe I can help some of these guys that I like in the gun industry with the ads. I mean, is that just an extension of your project as it was going through with Facebook, or was it just something that you've always kind of wanted to start, a consulting business and work with companies?
Yeah, it's definitely not what I want. I wanted to retire in peace. Is what I wanted to do. I would like to pursue, a new class of things for myself, for my family. But that last year at Facebook, when I said, okay, I'm going to go work on this crummy policy, and do that, I got a lot of experience. I understood pretty intimately how Facebook policies work, how YouTube policies work, how Instagram, everybody else kind of works. I saw the common pitfalls. I'm a process guy. I'm an infrastructure person. When I see infrastructure that's not healthy and can be improved, that gets me excited. I want to go fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And so here was a ripe area in an area that I was the most versed in. From anyone in the company, I think I can say pretty boldly, of the 30,000 people that work at Facebook, I was probably the number one person who knew the most about firearms and the firearms industry.
Okay.
So I leveraged that for the last year. I improved some of the policies. I lost some wars, won some. I lost a number. Not real pleased with my performance in the end, and that I wasn't able to get enough critical mass to get some things changed. But I got some things done well. So I wanted to, I made great relationship with NSSF, with a bunch of individual companies, places like even small companies like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, when I leave, I don't want it all to fall on the floor, because it's most likely going to fall on the floor internally. But I want to at least be a voice on the outside that can still look at the health of the ads ecosystem, the content ecosystem, and, still pester people, still be, tell people like you, here's what actually works, here's what doesn't, here's what they're doing, here's what they're not doing, here's how you can stay compliant, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm kind of leveraging on a case-by-case basis, and that's what I plan to do. And this SHOT Show coming up is important to me. I want to basically talk to more people, see where I can make the most impact, talking with NSSF and a bunch of the bigger companies. I'm doing a panel discussion with the guys who publish Field and Stream and Outdoor Life and Range 365 on one of their panels about marketing in the modern age with social and blah, blah, blah. So I want to see what falls out of that as far as future endeavors. But at a minimum, if people, I want to be a resource from everyone from the smallest companies to the biggest. If people are having problems, in your show notes, I gave a link to a very unofficial form where you can put in, if you're having trouble with an ad or trouble with content that you believe to be correct, because you're not trying to, I don't want to help anybody try to skirt any policies or play games or do some bullshit where you're going to try to like cloak it or do something to get something in. But if you legitimately, like I'm doing Cerakote and I can't get my ads to go.
Yeah.
I still want those. I want that input, because I will escalate it. Can't promise anything will happen by doing that. It's very unofficial, but I want to keep a pulse, a running score, if you will, and try to help those individuals. And it also keep kind of metrics on how much it's happening.
Well, I imagine you still have quite a few contacts, and you'll have contacts probably in forever there. So more people than the rest of us do. So
yeah, but people move on and people change roles. So it's a little tenuous. It's got a half-life. The good news is there's this body of people within Facebook who've reached out to me and like, hey, if you need help with this. So there's a group of people I can still forward things to and try to get some traction.
Okay. So I actually have a lot of gun guys that are going to SHOT Show that listen to this. When is your panel that you're going, and what's it called? I
The
might have
panel,
was interested in it.
right? I think it's an invitation only panel. It's on Tuesday at noon
Okay.
on the third floor, in one of the little conference rooms there. It's like a hospitality suite for the uh, for again this was it Bonaire Communications, the Bonaire Corporation that does Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, and a bunch of other specialty magazines.
Okay.
Um, so I'm not 100% sure how to get an invite there. You can certainly ping me if somebody hears this before Tuesday at noon. You can definitely ping me. I can see if I can get invites sent out.
Okay. All right. That's cool. So with the consulting thing, how are you going about getting customers? Are you like who do you want to work for? Who can contact you as far as, working with you?
Right. So personally, I want to have impact. I want to do things that have impact.
Mhm.
So obviously, the bigger the better. If I'm going to do a long-term engagement, it's with the likes of name names. I've had contacts with a bunch of big firearms companies and marketing companies, and because that usually has the biggest reach for how to fix things.
Mhm.
Having said that, being an engineer and understanding 4 or 5 nines of reliability, I don't want to let Weapon Works or any other small business suffer, because actually you feel it more. Like if you probably don't depend on Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising that much. It's a good thing, but there are some companies, I've helped companies in the past where like Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising works for many sectors, many businesses. And there were people like we took down their page or their group or their ads, and they're done. Their company is turned off, right? And they've been going for years. And like I'm do reloading supplies, I do this, I do that, and like 90% of my business came from Facebook or that group I ran or whatever. And that's a critical situation. So I don't, I definitely want to help in those cases as well. That's less to do for consulting and more, like I say, for outreach.
Mhm.
Um, the other consulting I'm doing is on the other end. So I've reached out to other companies, places like Twitter, YouTube, um, other payment places, and like offered my services. Like, hey, you are doing a poor job in the firearms and firearms accessory space. Would you like an expert, an SME, subject matter expert, to come and tell you the lay of the land, who has contacts with NSSF and with the industry, and can explain to you where the risk is, where the risk is not, and how to come up with a policy that makes sense. It's not going to piss off your users. Going to go to it's going to stay true to your mission of whatever your mission is most likely connecting people,
Mhm.
and still not introduce risk. So that's the other side of the consulting that I've done a little bit with so far with a couple companies who reached out to me like, hey, we want to work on our firearms policy so we don't look so biased, and we're not like looking like we're this big anti-gun corporation, even though we kind of are, but we don't want to we want some expertise in how to we don't know the names of things, we don't know the terms, we don't know what this is, we don't know what this means, is this dangerous, can you do this, that kind of stuff.
Well,
So that's the other side.
that's good that at least someone is willing to at least look at it and see how, look at it objectively and realize how petty and silly some of it is. I mean, I
Yeah.
I get it. They don't want people selling machine guns on their site, but stuff like slings and even pocket knives, that always blew my mind.
That was if I had stayed at Facebook, that was my next surface. I started to poke at it with the knife thing. Our knife policy, the Facebook knife policy, is ridiculous, and it was just hanging up so many. Even big companies were getting hung up, like
Mhm.
Walmart or Cabela's or Target or whatever, because it's just so brain dead. I'm like, if you're the biggest advertising platform in the world and you can't figure out like how to manage sharp objects from the time of cavemen, like what the hell? How is that not embarrassing?
Yeah.
Right? Fix it. Don't just like they just try to go to the lowest common denominator. Like, well, if we just don't let any knives, it'll be the easiest, right? Same thing for guns. Just like if there's nothing with any gun in it, it's just easy for us,
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't hold it at all. So that was what I was kind of railing on. We'll see. Maybe that improved. I left a little bit of a effort there to get that fixed.
So So you said that you had planned on retiring in peace. So this isn't really something that you had been planning on for a while. This is kind of a when you were finally done with Facebook, were you like bored, or did you quit Facebook to do this?
So I was definitely didn't quit to do this. I
Okay.
quit because 30 years in the industry, 11 years of Facebook, that is enough. And Facebook had begun, it's getting to be a big, big company. And I still think it's a good company, but it just, the feel was a little bit getting too big, too crazy, too some politics and blah, blah, blah. My plan was to go quit, get serious about my 3-gun game, about my USPSA game, spend a ridiculous amount of money on guns, just do stuff like that. Go to the range 3 times a week, and get I need a mission, right? So my mission was, okay, pick a goal for getting some sort of level at 3-gun,
Hmm.
or with, get my USPSA game back together. So that was the real plan, but we'll see how that works out.
I don't know. If you're like me, man, you wouldn't be satisfied just doing that all the time. I don't know. I've done got to where I live to work, man. I love being in here. It aggravates my wife a little bit sometimes. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the shop. I'm not gonna sit here and watch TV. I'm just gonna go to the shop. I'm gonna figure out something to do.
Yeah, I mean, at your age, that makes perfect sense. And I was the same way. For these startups I was at, and again, this is, working for a company, effectively working for a company. I was working for someone else, but those startups, I was working 60, 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. I mean, our life was, we want to make this company work. It was, I know exactly what you mean. So it's not just the sole proprietorships that are kind of grinding it out like that, and having that passion. It's, you can be in a relatively big company. I was in a company with 1,000 people, and I
Hmm.
was doing that stuff, because I wanted to, because it was like, I want this to be successful. I have my equity, but even more so, I have this desire for this company to be successful.
We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and you know, I'm real big. Like in the mornings, I do this 1 minute thing every morning on Instagram, and with the podcast and everything. I like to talk about people starting their own thing, but that is, I mean, you're a beautiful example of this. That's not the only path to become successful in life. Which of course, everyone knows. Like, everybody's always like doctor, lawyer, all this, but you kind of took a different path where you're working with startups, for brand equity, and I mean, and you did really well for yourself in 30 years. So it's a beautiful example of just another path someone can take to success. You don't have to just settle for the $15 an hour job at Walmart. So
That's exactly right. And I always think this when I listen to your podcast, and I'm always inspired by the people you have on, and their ability to make their own companies incredible. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I don't know if I can do that.
mhm,
Um, and what worked for me is working for really good people at really good companies. Pick a good company. There are good companies out there that have an attitude of like building up their employees. And every place I've worked, all these startups invested in me because they know, like any company knows, your number one asset are the people working for you.
mhm.
The hardest thing I had to do was get people on board who were the best
Yeah.
on any job when I was hiring. And you can do well for yourself if you're with a company that's invested in you. And when they're not, or you're feeling like, okay, I'm in a rut or I'm not progressing, you can just leave,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And you line something else up, or then start your own thing. But you have this whole infrastructure done for you, where I learned how startups work. I learned entrepreneurship. I learned all the pitfalls without having it be on my neck. It wasn't me that was going to be bankrupt. It wasn't me that was going to lose my savings in this venture. I'd lose my job, but I could observe and learn from what the founders and CEOs were doing, and doing right and doing wrong. And I have this body of knowledge now where I feel confident way more than I ever would have about how to start a company and what to watch out for now than I would have ever had. So that there's a value working, and you don't have to do it your whole life. Just do it, when you're out of school, some internships, work for good companies, learn on someone else's dime effectively, and
Mhm.
then leverage that for yourself when you're ready.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So let me guess here. You said that you graduated in 89. So I'm guessing you are somewhere 48, 49, 50,
Right.
somewhere in that area.
Yeah, about 52. Yeah.
52. Okay. So if you could go back and you tell 18-year-old Chuck something, what would you tell that dude?
So we're back in 1984 now, and the world's a different place.
I was 4, Chuck.
There you go. What would you tell your 4-year-old self? So, there's obviously a lot of things. The one that I thought about was, the world's not as smart as you think.
Yeah.
The institutions around you, the companies, the government, the various institutions that you think have it all figured out and are actually doing things and, things you don't have to worry about. It's actually not the case.
Mm.
You probably can do a better job in any of those areas uh, than you would expect. And I would tell myself back then, don't limit yourself because you think you're not good enough to do X, Y, or Z. Because experience has shown that every situation I've walked into, it's like, okay, this could be done better, and I could do this better.
Mhm.
In precious few cases, obviously, there's experts in the 1% of every field, but for the most part, every institution everything that you're interacting with could be done better by you. So don't be shy about engaging with things, going in directions that you think like, oh, I couldn't do that, or look at these people, they're doing something, I could never do. I guarantee you, if you get in there and be there for 6 months, you'll be like, oh man, this is a mess. This is a mess, and I can do it better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So how long do you see the consulting thing going on? I mean, how long until you actually are like, okay, I'm really just going to shoot for a living now?
I think like goes back to what you said, and the modern idea of retirement is different than kind of what we expect from our parents and grandparents, where you get your gold watch and go sit in the porch and smoke your pipe. So I don't know what the future holds, quite honestly. It's, I'm still young enough where I could, I'm actually talking to a company now that's doing some software that's pretty intriguing, and I could go back and do that software stuff. Um, it's really up in the air. It's the thing I have now is just the complete freedom to just 100% do what feels right for me and is going to make the right demands from my personal time and allow me to continue to do things I like doing, but have some impact. I kind of wilt away if I don't feel like I'm having impact doing something. So we'll
So
see.
so my standard questions that I've been doing for these interviews, they a lot of them don't really, mesh with your business model. Is there anything that you see you doing here in the future that you want to tell somebody about? Like what do you want to tell to everybody who says that, oh well, Facebook ads, I can't get that done? Or I mean, what would you tell these guys?
The one thing I can tell you is stay in the fight. Okay, there's a culture war against guns by a very biased and very powerful media and political forces that absolutely are divorcing firearms from regular life.
Mm.
Okay, we are becoming more of an anomaly. This special case of citizens who, for some reason, want to have guns. Do not give in to this temptation to go off in our own little corner and make our own YouTube and make our own Facebook and make our own whatever. It's very tempting, and I understand completely why you want to do that, because the bullshit you have to deal with is discouraging.
Mhm.
But don't do it. Stay in the fight. Stay on Facebook, stay on Instagram, stay on Twitter, stay on YouTube, wherever it is. I mean, yeah, make that gun tube or whatever it's going to be and put your videos there as well, but do not abandon the public square. Okay, live your authentic gun self out loud. All right, we need to normalize, and this is weird because I grew up, it wasn't normal to be a gun owner and have some freaking idea of how guns work and what your rights were.
Mhm.
And like in one generation, like this current kind of, we'll complain about millennials, but this current generation is completely lost it. Like, didn't understand that it's a right that you have that you're squandering for no good reason because you're being basically lied to about it.
Mhm.
So that's what I would want to see going forward. That's kind of why I'm advocating for what I'm doing. It's why I want to do what I want to do, what I'm doing here, is because I want to help people stay in the fight.
Nice, nice, nice. So tell all these guys, well, if you want to, how can someone get in touch with you and, ask you a question?
Right. So yeah, I don't necessarily want people to get in touch with me because I'm a one man. I can't be a one man support team.
Hey,
Uh,
I get it.
but that's fine. No, people can get a hold of me couple ways. So I want to put that, a link to that. There's a bit.ly link that we'll put in there for the form for getting, if you're having trouble on Facebook, Instagram. Also facebook.com/ChuckR. So you can message me there. I check all my various inboxes on Messenger. On Twitter is Chuck R. Instagram is Chuck RRR. I couldn't get Chuck R because I worked there at Facebook and Instagram, and I saw the guy. It was really tempting to go nuke that guy from Orbit who had Chuck R and take his account, but I didn't do that.
Been shady.
Yeah, I don't think that would have gone over well. So yeah, Chuck R with 3 R's for Instagram. So generally, that's the way you can get a hold of me.
Okay. So we're gonna have a beer or two at Shot next week.
I certainly hope so. I imagine it's gonna be hard. I'm easier to find than you. You're hard guy to get a hold of probably during that week, but I certainly hope we can meet up.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I don't know. Everybody usually hangs out at the lobby in the Venetian, sit around, drink beer, and introduce anybody. And there's anybody you think that I should know, I want you to make sure that you introduce me, and I'll do the same. All right, brother.
Sure, appreciate that.
Chuck, I appreciate you coming on here with me, and we're definitely going to put those links in the descriptions of the YouTube video and Instagram TV, and on, I'm not sure if I can on Apple Podcasts, but I'm gonna certainly try. And I do appreciate it, man. But guys, thank you guys so much for coming in here and listening to us ramble about shit that probably only us care about. But I appreciate you guys coming in here, as always, giving me your time. Likes, subscribes, thumbs up, shares, all that stuff is appreciated, guys. And everybody have a great day, and we will talk to everybody later.